Welcome back to the A4Q Testing Summit. We're coming to you live from Zürich, Switzerland. With me today, I have a man who has many titles, Sir Olivier Denoo. He's the former president, current vice president of the ISTQB, president of the CFTL, and an official IREB and TMMI representative in France. Today, he's going to be talking to us about the risks of AI. And I really look forward to his presentation because he will not only be discussing the risks, but also the benefits of AI. Olivier, we're so excited to have you here with us today and very interested in the presentation that you have for us. So I'd like to just take this opportunity to ask our audience if you have any questions throughout this session. Please feel free to leave your comments, your questions in the comment section from wherever you're watching, and tune in for our next sessions afterwards. We will also be incorporating a voting option. So if you've enjoyed Olivier's presentation today, be sure to vote for him on our program. Olivier, over to you.
Thank you very much, Debbie. Hello, everyone. So in this presentation, you've probably heard a couple of presentations already about AI and how AI can facilitate your testing business, how AI can be used to help you develop, I don't know, testing scripts or development scripts, whatever. And I would like to take an angle here that is a little bit different and try to inform or warn you a little bit about the usage of AI in certain contexts and why we should keep an eye on that. So yeah, basically speaking, let's move a little bit. And well, small background, of course. Well, we know that AI is now the new booming trend. You know, that's the new buzzword that is invading our lives. It is there about everywhere, and basically, even in this presentation, I use some AI help. So we hardly measure actually the capability and very little the dangers that are related to AI. We tend to be a little bit like in these Hollywood movies where you have R2D2 that is just there and connecting to the excuse me. I'm sorry, I have a. So R2D2 that is connecting to the Death Star and opening the gate and telling you that you have loads of people waiting for you and that the escape route is this one. So basically, AI is invading our life every time. And what is the trouble with AI, actually? It is that the devil is lying in the details, basically. So, for instance, if you take one of the AI tool that is booming today, like ChatGPT, ChatGPT can be used by about anyone, since OpenAI opened the gate to the public usage of ChatGPT. And basically, the trouble is that ChatGPT does a fair job, but it doesn't do 100% of the job. It does about 95% of the job. And let me give you an example. You just ask ChatGPT to define a scenario for you. And what happens is that actually you get 95% of the test scenario that is correct. But when you look a little bit more with regards to the detail, when you look a little bit more about the conditions that are covered by the scenario, what you get is something that is nearly perfect, but with a couple of glitches. And these couple of glitches are things that are changing a little bit the way the scenario is all about. And if you rely 100% to the scenario per se, you might get something, you might get something that is not working perfectly, and you might get something that is totally misleading. Basically speaking, if you take a car, for instance, like a Tesla car is supposed to be driving you without any problem at all from one point to another with this autopilot feature. And what is happening actually with the Tesla car is that there were a couple of crashes that have been faced over time. Basically, what happened was that the sensor on the car and the LiDAR that was there could not basically detect the difference between the horizon and, for instance, the flank of a truck that was in the direct spotlight, in the direct sunlight. And the driver was not driving at all. Actually, he was completely distracted, so he couldn't drive the car. And the Tesla car just went straight into the truck. And well, of course, that was a big accident. That was a big car crash, and the driver was killed. This is basically a small problem per se. Well, it's not a small problem that somebody is killed, but from a software point of view or from an AI point of view, this was just a small problem. It could be fixed by having a better LiDAR, by having a better kind of sensor. I can't relate that, for instance, to people who have these kind of, rear cameras that are installed on your car when you just move backward with your car. If these rear cameras are, for instance, stained because of the mud, because of a heavy rain before, or because it's very cold, you have some kind of shady clothes on your camera. You don't know exactly what is happening. And AI interprets, of course, the signal from the sensor in a totally different way. It couldn't tell that this is mud. It couldn't tell that this is, this kind of mist on your sensor. And of course, the decisions that are made by the program might lead to these sort of accidents and incidents. I'm also using every day a piece of AI that is called DeepL. And DeepL is something that is used, for instance, for translating for instance, ISTQB syllabi. Oh, by the way, there's one about artificial intelligence that has been issued by the ISTQB. And while translating, I just found a couple of glitches. So DeepL basically does the job practically well. So this is a vast amount of the job that is done, and it saves a lot of time, and the quality of the translation is usually extremely good. Trouble is that sometimes, for some reason, when you just activate or deactivate the glossary. So glossary is there in the tool to make sure that your translation choices are coherent. If I give you an example, the French people would immediately understand because I'm translating from English to French. In French, testing or test can be translated either in test, and this is the term that we use in a coherent manner all of the time when we translate ISTQB syllabi or TMMI or IREP or whatever. Every time the word test is used in English, is translated into test in French. But it can also be essay. An essay is another way to say test, but it is not coherent or it is not relevant for the IT sector, actually. And the artificial intelligence that is behind DeepL has encountered both occurrences, of course, because essay is also a valid translation in a totally different context. And sometimes it cannot tell if it's the one or the other. And we need to have an eye on that one. The trouble comes when you deactivate or activate the glossary, and a term that has nothing to do with your own glossary or hasn't been defined in there is impacting the translation. So for instance, we recently discovered that by activating or deactivating the glossary, some terms and some translations are becoming completely different and sometimes with a serious impact just because that glossary was on off. And by knowing that this term has never been approached in the glossary, it's never been defined in the glossary, it's never been put as a translation choice. So that's a little bit bizarre. So all these artificial intelligences are able to give you a big part of the result, but really the devil lies in the details. And think about it. the accuracy of a translation, or for instance, if you have 99% accuracy in a translation, it means that each and every 100 word, you have a glitch, you have an error, okay, which is already something. So already there, the risk is linked, or is depending actually on the probability of detection that you might have when using these artificial intelligence. One of the things that I often hear when talking about artificial intelligence, and whether it is Tesla or the other ones, is it will work better in the next version. You know, that's a little bit the agile principle. You try fast, you fail fast, that's okay. You learn from the errors, and everything of that is okay. But, you know, it reminds me a little bit these kind of discussions we had when you have the developer coming back to you when you're reporting the defect and saying, well, it works on my machine. Yeah, it works on your machine, but you're not going to ship your machine to the customer, right? So basically speaking, it's fine if they fix it. And I certainly understand that artificial intelligence is a brand new topic, is a brand new domain in IT. And yes, we've seen the progress, like we've seen the progress in video games, like we've seen the progress in any sort of IT activities that we're doing. But the trouble is that despite the fact that it will improve, and I will certainly be even happier if it improves, I need it now. And I couldn't care less if my Tesla improves in the future, because I'm already dead on the road due to the fact that the sensors and the AI made a wrong decision in my turn. One of the things that we often discuss with regards to AI is exactly this, the issue of repeatability or explainability. Repeatability or explainability are two things that are quite tricky with regards to AI. So repeatability means every time I put a prompt to the AI, I'm talking about generative AI for instance, like ChatGPT or DALL-E or well, these kind of programs, I would expect that every time that I put the prompt and the same prompt, I would get exactly the same answer. And basically speaking, well, it's not always the case. And it might be that somewhere in the hundred thousands, if not millions parameters somewhere, and the training and the reinforcement that is there in the AI, at a certain moment in time, for the same questions, I get two slightly different answers. I give you an example. And this is not 100% repeatability, but it can explain to you how difficult it is sometimes to get a grip on what you want to get. How would you get the output that you really desire? ChatGPT, I played with it a little bit, and I was trying to identify the logic of the tool. So I put a little logic problem to ChatGPT at the time. And it was the very basic, kind of joke. That's even a joke. You have a coffee and a sandwich, and both cost $5. And the coffee is, or the sandwich is $4 more than the coffee. How much is the coffee? But most of the people immediately will fall into the trap and take the attention bias shortcut, which is, oh, €4, or $4, $1, 5. Okay, that makes the sandwich $4 and the coffee $1. But it's completely wrong, because actually I said $4 more. $4 more than 1 is 5. And it doesn't work. You find 6 instead of 5. So basically, the correct answer is the sandwich is $4.5 or euro, and the coffee is 50 cents or half a dollar. And this is the correct answer. And ChatGPT is based on, kind of probability. It's been trained on a vast amount of data, and most of the people fall into the trap. So if you just ask the question blunt to ChatGPT, it will fall into the trap. And if you slightly modify the prompt, and you say, well, ChatGPT, behave like a math teacher and tell me how I can solve that problem. And then immediately ChatGPT reacts. There you get the equation that is coming. to surface. And then the equation, of course, is solving properly, and then you get the right answer. So just by slightly modifying the prompt, and sometimes not even modifying the prompt, but just changing one parameter, like my glossary in DeepL, you get a totally different answer. Explainability is another kind of approach or kind of glitch or problem. Basically speaking, what it is that you need to understand why you get the answer you get after getting the prompt. And the problem here lies upon the fact that these ChatGPT or these artificial intelligence programs are based upon algorithms that are kept secret. And why are they kept secret? Because these algorithms are used in order to qualify people, in order to get results. And if it's put very open on the table, if everyone knows and understands how the algorithm is working, or how the prompt is working and getting a certain output, well, people can hack, people can fake, people can cheat. And especially when you're talking about artificial intelligence programs that are there to, for instance, evaluate the risk of recidive while you have a criminal offense. That kind of software was used in the US to help the judges put a certain sentence to the convict at a certain moment in time. So it is due to stay, let's say, protected. It's due to stay there because either it can be cheated or it is linked to a business model. You think about the search algorithm of Google or Amazon or these kind of big corporation, big companies. Of course, they don't want to share their business model and the way they understand your customer behavior, the way they score your customer behavior, and so on and so forth. These are things that are not, of course, supposed to be in the open. So repeatability and explainability are kind of challenges. And the problem is that if you are the victim of an AI at a certain moment in time, like I was talking about these scoring for a recidive, for instance, it was clearly demonstrated after a while that there was some kind of racistic bias in the program. And the fun of it, well, it's not fun actually, but it was a bit strange, is that most of the people, most of the convicts, before they they got their judgment done, were submitted a big questionnaire with about 200 questions or so. And based upon the answers they provided with these questionnaires, they got a certain scoring that was their recidive probability, and based upon this recidive probability, they could be, either put directly to jail or be freed on probation with some money to pay or something. And basically speaking, it turned out that if you were black and poor, basically speaking, you always had a higher chance of recidive. And then we come to the juicy part. None of the question in the questionnaire, none of these 200 questions was referring to anything like, gender or skin color or race or anything. So it was deduced from the social context, actually, and it was embedded some sort of way in the answer due to the social context. So very, very difficult. Of course, they were asked for explainability, and they said, no, this is kind of patented stuff, so we cannot open. They stopped the program, of course. They don't use it, or, well, in some places they still use it. But basically speaking, if you're treated unfair, it's always very hard to get the explanation, and it's also very hard to get the correction done. Okay, we were talking here about ethics, or biases, or even occultation. Well, basically, let me tell you another story about AI. There were two AI programs that were run by Microsoft and Amazon at a certain moment in time that was basically aiming at face recognition program. Face recognition is something that is absolutely key today, especially with security, because in principle, nobody has the same face as you, and it's hard to fake. So that's kind of biometric sort of proof that you are who you pretend to be. very much used today in the airports, for instance. You have these automated gates where you can go through the security or the passport check directly. Very much used in the banking sector. So, you just look at your phone, it recognizes your face, and it gives you access to your bank account. That's the Hello program that opens your computer. Well, very, very large and wide range of possibilities connected to your face. Trouble is that they suddenly discovered that when they were using that piece of software in the US, let's say, or in the Anglo-Saxon country, it worked pretty well. But basically speaking, it was highly failing in Africa and in Asia, because basically these programs haven't been trained with enough faces coming from Africa and Asia, so it couldn't tell the difference between one African and the other, one Asian and the other. And of course, the same happens with the AI that are developed in these countries, like India and China, for instance. They have more difficulties in determining the difference between two Caucasian types of profiles, and while they are perfectly comfortable with African faces or Asian faces. So there are many possibilities to get biases, and ethics is not per se guaranteed in the program. It's not something that is easy. It's not something that is embedded in the algorithm or in the training data. And there's also this famous trolley dilemma, which is an ethical problem that's not typically an AI problem, though it is very, very much used in this context. Supposing that you are in your autonomous car at a certain moment in time, let's say you're driving a Tesla or any kind of autonomous car, and you're not touching the wheel, you're not touching the pedals. And what happens is that at a certain moment in time, well, physics is there, something unattended or unpredictable can happen. A child crosses the road, or something falls on the road just in front of your car or something, and the accident is just there, unavoidable, because physics is physics. You can't stop a car on 2 meters and then in 2 seconds. And then most of the programs are now saying, okay, now you take back the wheels and the pedals, and this is becoming your responsibility because I cannot avoid it. Well, basically, this is a big flaw, because I was told that these AI with all combined sensors and so on and so forth are much faster than myself to react, much more able than myself to take the right decision and so on and so forth. But then what? What is happening in this case? If the AI is left alone, I don't have to take the wheel back, though in any case, the accident will happen because I'm not faster and better than an AI, and physics applies as much to me as the piece of program. But let's say that I just decide not to take the lead, or just to let the AI do the stuff. What will be the decision if, let's say, a child crosses the road before my car? Am I going to hit the child, or am I going to hit the wall and eventually crash the car and definitely kill myself? What would be the decision? What would be, and based upon what? Well, today, the question is not there, because the AI are not trained for that. They are not able to differentiate a normal obstacle than let's say a child or an old lady or a dog or whatever kind of object or thing that crosses your road at a certain moment in time. But it may perfectly happen, and of course we're progressing and we're evolving. So this trolley dilemma is very, very interesting to see. And finally, based upon the amount of data that we use to train the piece of software, to train the AI up front, it can perfectly be that we introduce biases. I told you about the faces, and I told you about the different types of faces here and there. But also we can even decide to avoid certain categories or objects or people and so on and so forth. And if we go a little bit, which I'm not really willing to go at the time, but if we go a little bit to the conspiracy theory, then you can perfectly train AI to ignore some behavior, some categories of people or objects, and so on and so forth. So interesting things to have a look at, definitely. Yeah. What I fear a little bit as well is that we are more and more enthusiastic people with regards to AI. When ChatGPT opened to the great public, it was there to stop any activities for loads of people, including testing, because it's so brilliant, it's so able to do anything, and it goes fast, and it's cheap, and so on and so forth. Yes, maybe. Well, I'm not 100% convinced, and I'm definitely against, not because I do believe that I should survive and then the AI will take over on me, but just because I do believe that we're not ready for that yet. And there will always be, a necessity, or it will always be necessary to have a human to make the final decision. At least this is my opinion. So, but let's go back to the idea. We massively use these artificial intelligence, and basically speaking, we all have the same sort of problem. When I'm traveling all over the world, I meet testers from everywhere. I've just been in Georgia a couple of days ago, and I found again some patterns here and there when people are facing the same sort of trouble that I face in France, that I met in other parts of the world. And basically, if we all have the same question and we all address the same artificial intelligence to solve our problem or give us hints, it might perfectly be that we get, kind of standard answer, normalized answer. And the problem is that, first of all, it kills a little bit creativity, which is something that is surely not desirable as far as I'm concerned. But also, second, it increases the risk of single point of failure. And I will make the analogy with these kind of genetically modified types of cereals, let's say corns, for instance. These days, biology engineers just engineer, because it's not nature anymore. This is something that is carefully selected and genetically modified. They engineered special species of corn or cereals or whatever, because they produce more, because they are more resistant to insects or pests, because they are more resistant to diseases or climate change or these kind of things. And it's of course perfect in terms of productivity and efficiency and effectiveness and whatever. But if there is one super disease or one super insect that is targeting especially these super resistant species, then of course, because we only rely on one or two, we are in a very big trouble. And I fear a little bit that being driven that sort of normality, we have that same sort of depletion or bias in what we produce. Another thing that is interesting also to understand is that when you travel a little bit, when you go over the world, you see that people have different opinions, different cultures, and different ways of seeing the world and different visions over the world. For instance, if we discuss about these kind of touchy topics like religion, like ethics, like name it, LGBTQ plus community, let's talk about abortion, let's talk about women's rights and power, and so on and so forth. Well, I'm not sure that everyone in the world is sharing exactly the same vision and is having exactly the same opinion. Of course, we have kind of standard opinion on kind of, recognized opinion here and there, but there's absolutely nothing that guarantees that these opinions are the same all over the world. And these AI are, of course, used or supposed to be used all over the world. Why am I pointing at that? Because ChatGPT, talking about that one in particular, because it's very popular, has three potential flows, let's say, inside there. Well, first of all, an artificial intelligence is getting information out of data. That's the training data. So it is trained with a big bunch of data, like DALL-E is trained with a big bunch of images that is coming from the web, right? Well, if the data is not complete, it's not representative enough, it's not representing all the trends in the society or the variety of opinions or views in the society, then you already introduce a bias there, And that's exactly what happened with the face recognition programs that had to be stopped because they were not effective and efficient in certain countries. Second, this big amount of data is then tagged or labeled, as it is called, in order to make sure that the artificial intelligence is able to understand and modelize the world or the problem that it is facing, and is correctly able to tell the difference between what is supposed to be the output and what is the non-output. For instance, take a simple example. Let's say that we trained our artificial intelligence to recognize pictures of cats, okay? And, well, you will give a big amount of images where you have cats, dogs, cars, whatever. Well, basically speaking, what you expect is that you have cat pictures and non-cat pictures. This is basically what happens. And if the artificial intelligence is getting just the pictures like that, well, artificial intelligence doesn't know cats, so it needs to be trained. And training is, there is some kind of human interaction at a certain moment in time, labeling that say, this is a picture of cat, this is also a cat, this is not a cat, this is also a cat, oh, this might be a cat, this is, well. So if this kind of tagging, this kind of labeling is done wrong, intentionally or non-intentionally, well, there's also a risk of sabotage. There's also a risk of, willing to do something wrong. Well, of course, you train the artificial intelligence on something that doesn't work. So this is a second reason why the artificial intelligence can have a flaw. And then the third layer that was put on ChatGPT is called human supervision. And human supervision, that's a couple of people. How many? We don't know. Who are they? We don't know. Why are they there? We don't know. What is that they believe, and so on and so forth? We don't know. But they are there to protect ChatGPT from being hacked, like Ty from Microsoft has been hacked. Well, if you don't know the story, Ty is a little chatbot, much more simple than ChatGPT, actually. And it was supposed to interact in the Twitter sphere, now X sphere, I suppose, since Elon Musk decided to rename the company. And a couple of people, let's call them trolls, did understand that basically Ty was just there to have a conversation with them, but Ty was a robot and they knew that. So they decided to inject as a feedback to the conversation things that were totally inappropriate. And in less than 25 hours, this little kind AI that was just there to learn the world and how human beings are through Twitter channels, suddenly became extremely racistic, willing to have sex with anyone, negationist, and so on and so forth. That was to such an extent that Microsoft stopped the initiative after 25 hours or 24 hours. And, well, of course, OpenAI knows the story. Of course, they don't want to enter the same game. So they decided to put people just there to extra label, to supervise some sort of, or anticipate some sort of deviations of that type, and just say, well, if you're asked how to create a bomb, well, you should reply something like, well, this is not appropriate, I don't know the recipe, or even if I knew the recipe, I'm not going to give it back to you because I don't want to favor terrorism all over the world, okay? And that's all right. Well, actually, that is not that obvious, and it is not that all right, because basically speaking, there are ways to eventually even get the recipe on how to move on and make a bomb through ChatGPT. We'll come to that a bit later in the presentation. But the big trouble here is not that. The big trouble is because I don't know who is supervising, I don't know if I have the same opinion as these people. Of course, that is all right with me. That ChatGPT doesn't give the recipe of making a bomb to anyone who asks. But I'm not sure that if we talk about other topics, I would be perfectly in agreement with the supervision layer has decided for me. And of course, again, this is very opaque model, so you don't know how and how much and how many and so on and so forth. Okay. Another thing that we don't think much about is the notion of fair use and intellectual property. I was talking about, these generative AI that are making pictures, and all designers are now suddenly fearing that they are out of a job because the AI is doing fine. I'm talking about DALL-E 2. I'm talking about Midjourney. I'm talking about, well, these kind of generative AI. But these generative AIs have been trained with loads of data, loads of images, actually, that are coming from all over the place, all over the web. And where are they coming from? Are these images free of right? Can you use these images, or are they, are they belonging to someone? Is there an IP attached to the image? And this is a serious question. A couple of years ago, I was reusing an image, and I was transforming the image actually that I found on the web, and it was not an open source image. And at a certain moment in time, somebody asked, "Okay, that's my IP, so I would like to have money because you used that in your presentation, and this is not open source, so I need some money from you." And of course, on the principle, yeah, it's all right. That is okay. But then, when you train an AI with loads of data that might be someone else's property, what is going on, and who then owns the IP of the result? And there's another legal layer that is called the fair use, which seems to say that if you transform the result one way or the other, then this is not infringing anyone's IP, because you're adding value to the original contents. You're bringing your own extra layer of content, and then due to that, the IP is, now becoming yours, at least for the final result, not the original one, of course. And this is the whole discussion about, is it fair use or is it not fair use? And there are already some lawsuits starting in the US, because lots of authors said, well, guys, you're using your Lion database. It is taken all over the web. And because it is taken all over the web, it might be that you're using my IP. And because you're using my IP, I want to get some money back from you. We'll see how it comes. But this is very, very interesting. So that notion of fair use, the same goes if you want to, for instance, just put extra code in there and solve the defect in your code. Well, if it's proprietary code that you want to solve and get an advice upon, well, guys, what is going on with it? Are you making it open to the public? Is it still your property after all? Very, very questionable. I was talking about the cars and the liability. Well, if you crash a Tesla somewhere, and let's say that you don't touch the wheel and the pedals, from an insurance perspective, the liability is still yours. Yeah, but I was not driving. Yeah, but you're the insurance taker. I cannot sue the AI company. I cannot sue the piece of software because it's just an AI. So I need to sue somebody if somebody made a fault or an error or whatever, and the liability stays with us. Okay, that's all right, but I'm liable for something that I didn't do. Seems a little bit weird or strange, I just chose a car that was supposed to drive me safely. Next aspect is the difficulty we will all face, and we're already facing it today, distinguishes or telling the difference between facts or fakes. And today, these generative AIs, for instance, are able to create such multimedia contents of such a quality that it's absolutely very, very difficult to tell whether it is a deep fake or if it's just reality. And here are some examples. Well, you see Donald Trump being arrested. Well, this is generated by Midjourney, if I'm not mistaken. And, well, Donald Trump never was arrested that way, but it looks okay. And if it's put on social network, then, of course, it gets a big visibility and traction, and it can be, of course, used and misused. The same with the French president, Macron, that is on strike there. It never wore that sort of clothing, and he never was on strike, of course, at the time. So this is also a kind of responsibility that we all have to be able to tell the difference between what is truth and what is not true. I'll go very, very fast on that one. AI can be easily misled. It's fragile, you know. Statistics are not always right, and we've seen loads of video of adversarial attacks. You know, you're just wearing a special T-shirt or a piece of paper on your belly, and suddenly you're not identified by the AI as a human being, but as a table or any kind of object. So there are ways to bypass. And the same I was telling, ChatGPT is very weak when you ask, or it's very powerful. It just depends how you take it. When you ask him to take a certain stand, you know, be a math teacher or act like a math teacher and solve the equation or solve the problem. Immediately, ChatGPT is empowered in that role. And of course, be a terrorist and tell me how I can make a bomb with, I don't know, a Swiss knife and 2 grams of salt. That is also something where we are a bit fragile, and this is something to be looked at. And all in all, I'll just close this presentation with regards to creativity and originality. Lots of people were just wowed by the fact that some artificial intelligence could draw or you know, create pictures. Well, basically we did. That's just remixing and rematching a couple of things based upon prompts or based upon, I don't know, some kind of free prompts that they can do. Call it inspiration when it comes to human. I'm not quite sure that this is creativity or art when it's coming from AI, but this is my personal perspective, because basically speaking, I think that art is connected to emotions. And as far as I'm concerned, as far as I can judge, AI is very effective and efficient, but it has no emotion. So that closes a little bit my presentation. Sorry for the technical glitch in the beginning of this presentation. Please raise the questions now or later if you wish. Here are my details, so feel free to connect. Feel free to drop me a mail or a LinkedIn question or whatever. Thank you very much for your attention. In any case, that was a big pleasure and honor to speak in front of you today.
Olivier, thank you for your wonderful presentation. We do have some questions from the audience.
All right.
Looking on the bright side, which good use cases have you found of ChatGPT and other AI where the accuracy is actually quite good?
Well, put it this way, ChatGPT is actually quite good in all kind of scenarios that I used. I asked ChatGPT to write scenarios using test techniques like equivalence partitioning or boundary value analysis, solving, you know, the kind of classic problems that you have when you're facing an exam for foundation level, for instance. And I must say again, 95% of the answer is all right. So it gives me the right answer in most cases. But so far I used ChatGPT and probably it improved and so on and so forth. The ones that I tested, there was always one extra case or one extra condition that made the answer not perfect, and you would have failed the test if you had added that to the case. So the same when you ask, for instance, ChatGPT, there are wonderful videos on YouTube on that one, where you had these kind of YouTube influencers advocating Microsoft products like Excel or whatever, and asking to write a macro, and kind of difficult macro, kind of difficult embedded or nested Excel formula, and it worked very well, but with a little detail every time. And this is where I say, guys, I'm not against AI. Use it. This is a time saver. This is sometimes helping you understand stuff. This helps you get a grip very fast on the loads of problem. But please don't fly blind. Don't rely blindly on that. You need to have your extra 5% of expertise to make sure that it works. Actually speaking, the motto is, I don't fear artificial intelligence, I just fear human stupidity and the fact that people just blindly rely on what they get and not questioning. You know, we are testers. That's our role. That's our job, to question and challenge everything.
Definitely, and as you mentioned, 100% correct. We have another question about the dangers and risks related to AI. Do you think that we should, my apologies, could you elaborate a bit more about the risks of biases or manipulations related to AI?
Yeah. So the trouble with biases is that they are hard to detect. And the trouble, as I said, is that they are detected sometimes, or in most cases, too late, you know? And because we have loads of data, we believe that we can create programs that are able to sort out, efficiency, effectiveness, human behaviors, classify, give a raise to, the employees, judge recidives among convicts or criminals. Well, these kind of things. And in most cases, it works pretty fine. But we're just sometimes creating biases by training with the wrong data or not enough data, or asking questions that indirectly induce some biases. So in this case, for instance, the one about criminal offense and recidive, the questionnaire was just targeting too much the social context and linking directly the social context with the criminality. And there was another example in Chicago, if I'm not mistaken. There was that kind of crime prediction AI system. And the crime prediction AI system was there to say, okay, in that neighborhood, the next crime will happen within the 24 next hours, and we need to do something about it. So it was based on a huge amount of data. I know what happens if I know that a crime is going to happen in the next 24 hours in this area. I put more policemen in there. But because you put more policemen in there, well, they have an eye for crime. That's their job. And they find some little things here and there, like we are having an eye for defects, and we find some defects anytime we interact with a piece of software. And of course, because they found more offenses and more little crimes there, not the big stuff. It was not a murder. It was just somebody stealing a little bit, or somebody, I don't know, spitting on the road or whatever, these kind of small offenses. But these small offenses were fed back in the system. And the system said, well, in this area, the crime is rising. So we put even extra more policemen in there, and we detect even more crimes. And then you have this auto-excitation loop where finally, we just neglect other parts of the city because we believe that all the crimes are happening in this area, and basically we're doing the wrong stuff. So it's very tricky. We need to be very, very cautious and very, very critical with what we develop with AI and challenge everything very hard.
Definitely. Olivier, thank you so much. Your presentation was insightful, and I think many of us can take a good look into what you said and implement that into our daily lives, especially incorporating AI and the fact that most of us are now using AI in our everyday lives. Thank you again for your wonderful presentation, and thank you to our audience that is watching. I encourage you to tune in for our next session on the hour, and visit our program page on our website to give Olivier Denoo a rating for best presentation or best speaker. Olivier, once again, thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to having you here with us next time.
Thanks a lot. Thank you all. Have a nice day. Bye-bye. See you soon.
Bye-bye.